Hey y'all, we're back again to do some more forging. Today I'm going to show you how I make a candle holder. Since it seems to be an item that I have trouble keeping in stock on Etsy, it's pretty popular, so I'm going to show you how I make it. Now, what I've got already is the base. This is going to be the cup part of it. I've got this already cut out. It's just a piece of sheet metal. I trace a circle around it, cut it out, and then grind it to where it's nice and smooth. I've got a piece of 3/4 ID pipe that we will make the candle cup out of, and then I've got a piece of 1/4 inch round stock that we will make the handle for it out of. So I'm going to get everything set up and we'll get started. Since the weather's so nice outside, I've decided to switch it up and we're going to use the coal forge. To start, I get my wood fire going, and then I'll slowly rake in the coal on top of it. So while we're letting our fire get ready here, I'm going to give you a quick show of my coal forge. I have updated it and added some wheels so it is easier to move around. Those are just old steel iron wheelbarrow wheels. Everything else is I built pretty much out of scrap material, so it cost me very little other than the welding rods it took to weld it together. Then I have my Champion blower here. It's an antique. The stand is homemade, pretty much out of the same thing, just scrap materials. And the thing about coal, you can't just light it and go. We've got to let our fire get right, burn some of these impurities out, and once we get it ready, we'll start forging. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and work on the handle since it is the simplest part of this. Get our taper started there. Back in the fire and reheated. We got a taper in, we got square, now we're going to go octagon and then round. So we're going to knock these corners off. Then we're going to round it up. Now that we're tapered out and rounded, I'll work on that just a little bit more. But we're going to put our scroll end in here. Now that that's in, heat it back up and we'll put our circle loop for our handle. Got the tip cooled off so we don't mess it up. We're gonna use the jig here. Get our nice loop in, finish it up. Our loop in for the handle. Now we'll just cut it off and forge us out a flat spot for our rivet. We got our flat for the rivet. We'll curve it just a little bit because our cup will be bowl shaped. And that's our handle. I'll clean up the end a little bit with a file, make it look a little bit better, but that is the handle portion of our candle holder. So I had a little bit of a mishap with the camera. I thought I was recording and I wasn't, but I'm gonna start on the horn and work this around and flare this end of it out. We'll work it around even, try to keep it nice and smooth. That's about what we want right there. So now I've got my spring fuller here, and this will form the bottom of the cup. Get it in there and just kind of eyeball how deep I want it to be. And we'll start with light blows because I don't want to crush the pipe. And we'll work it around smooth. You see how that starts to give us our nice round bottom, and we'll just keep working that until it gets down to where I want it. And also, once I get this one forged and I cut it, I've already got my bottom for the next one that I make. Keep working this around until I get it down to where I want it. And one more heat, we'll work it one more time, and I'll have what I need there. A little bit more. Now that is finished, all but cutting it off, and I'll take either the angle grinder or hacksaw or something along those lines to cut it off. And like I said, I'll try to cut it right in the middle, so I've already got my bottom for my next cup, and I can cut it off and just flare out the end and it'll be ready. Now we're going to start on the bowl or pan portion. I'm going to start it in this bearing race. It's a little bit too big for my swage block. Try to get it centered up here. This part can get a little aggravating. Need to weld me on a hardy shank so this thing don't bounce around like it does. So we're gonna get another heat, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and swap over to the swage block. I've got it dished a little bit, so we'll finish it up in that. And we've swapped over to the swage block here. We're just gonna use this bowl side to round it out and make our bowl shape. And this doesn't have to be very deep. You just want a little bit of a bowl shape to catch the wax as it runs off the candle. Try to keep it even. I'm going to take one more heat, and I'm going to flatten the bottom a little bit so it sits flat on the table or wherever when you have your candle. I'm going to use the flat side of my hammer and just work that bottom flat a little bit. And we'll flip it over and work it on the inside. I want to try to keep it even as well, so it's just kind of in the center there. And there's our pan. So I'm going to let these pieces cool off, and we'll clean them up and get ready to assemble it. So now our pieces have cooled off. I'm going to clean them up on a wire brush. The cup, since I have this nice long handle, I'm going to go ahead and clean it before I cut it off. Helps if we plug it in. And all I'm doing here is just getting the rough forge scale off of it. There we go, we got our pieces cleaned. I'm going to cut this off and file that to a better looking shape. And for this one, all I'm going to do is just round it up a little bit. Back that away from me. For the handle attachment, I'll be using a copper rivet. But I've got my mark, or my hole here center punched. And I'm going to start with a small bit. Get me a starter hole to make sure I'm centered. Sometimes larger bits, especially when you're drilling by hand, they want to walk on you. Now, I would typically, if it was flat, I would use my drill press, but where this is curved and the odd shape of it, I will just freehand it. So we have our hole for our rivet. Now we've got to transfer that to our pan here. And there's nothing real fancy about this. I just eyeball it. I'll take my Sharpie and get my mark there. And then we'll repeat the process. Now before I put the rivet in, I will use a little bit larger bit and countersink the hole just a little bit to help that rivet bite where it will stay put where it's supposed to be. And I'm going to have to center punch this because I was wanting to walk with the small one. So that will be our attachment for the handle. I'll cut this off a little bit shorter and then I'll just pin it down, and that gives us a nice mechanical connection there. So now I have it drilled and I have my rivet cut down to the size I want. I'll move back to the anvil and pin it down so it stays tight. To adjust it just to make sure everything's straight. Now our handle is attached to our pan. Now traditionally, the cut would be either welded to the pan or riveted, or it would be forged out of one piece. But for the sake of modern convenience, I am going to weld it. And I weld it down through the center, so really it just can't be seen. Now, that completes the forging and assembly of our candle holder. And for the sake of time, since I've already done a video on it, the only step left for that would be to coat it with a protective coating, and normally I use beeswax and I burn it on. But I've got one here that I've already done, so for the sake of time we're going to skip that step, but this is the finished product. And that's it. Brings us to the end here. I want to thank y'all for watching. I do have one other thing before I do that. And I don't know if y'all noticed it or not during the video, but I have put my maker's mark on the bottom of this. Now, I did not have one of these for the longest time, and I had one made. And I want to give a shout out to Chris at Betty's Grocery in Walnut Cove. And I try to support local when I can. And he's a local gunsmith. They do all kinds of things, Cerakoting, custom engraving. I know they do laser engraving, just all kinds of stuff that he does down there. And he's really good at what he does. So it's Chris at Betty's Grocery. And I'll try to tag a link or put a link in the description of this video. But for everybody that's watched till this point, thank you. I appreciate the views. I appreciate the subscribers. Y'all have a good day.